Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Uh, my dear brothers and sisters, we're once again gathered to provide some reminders to each and every one of us. And today, we want to really talk about family. You know, if you would picture a scene of an expression of love for family, the one that comes to my mind is really the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sitting with his uncle Abu Talib, who is on his deathbed, and is not a believer. And the Prophet ﷺ there pleading with him, oh, just take the Shahada, just say the words, and I will make intercession to Allah for you. And Abu Talib refusing to do it in the last moment. Can you imagine the kind of sadness that the Prophet had? That this uncle who defended him all his life, who he grew up in front of, who took care of him, and in the last moment of his death, trying to get him to say the words of I believe in Allah and the Messenger of Allah, so that he could be one of those who will enter paradise, and he did not. That is family. You know, the Prophet ﷺ had a mother who passed away very early, Amina. And Amina delegated a young girl who was the maid. Her name was Baraka. And she stayed with the Prophet all her life, looking after him, taking care of him all the time. And eventually she reached about 50-something years of age. She was no longer a pretty young lady. And the Prophet ﷺ and his wife, Khadija, said, we need to see if we could find somebody to marry her. Imagine the Prophet ﷺ as your person who is trying to find a spouse. So he goes to the community, and what's his pitch? Who would like to marry a person of paradise? Who would like to marry their sister who is a person of paradise? What a great act of love that the Prophet ﷺ had for Barakah, that eventually one of the brothers said, I will. And so our families, we tend to love them greatly. They are going to give us great joy and happiness. But our family are the ones who test us the most. And there are often times when, we look at a family member and we says, I can't believe that this person is part of my family. I can't believe that they are part of my family. And our families, we don't get to pick them. They come in all sizes, shapes, and culture, races, every different way our family composed of. Some of them are beautiful, they are intelligent, some of them are a little bit crazy. And so we get all sorts of people who become part of our family. And in our faith, family is indeed greatly emphasized, the importance of family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. O you who believe, save yourself and your family from the hellfire. So we consciously have to make an effort to help our family to become believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, khayrukum khayrukum li ahli wa ana khayrukum li ahli. That the best of you are those who are best to their families. And that I am indeed the best to my family. And so we find that the Prophet ﷺ paid a great deal of emphasis that the faith of Islam, the religion, and the believers are asked to pay great regard to families. When Allah says, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى, and when those who spend out of the love of Allah, the first category of people mentioned on who we must spend on, our relatives, our kin, our near relatives. And so throughout the teachings of our faith, we see there is a great deal of emphasis to be able for us to do for the family and to help the family and so on. Sometimes the word is ahl, which means family, or usra, or al, many words used. And so some of the advices I want to mention today is really in relation to our families, is that first of all, we must understand that when it comes to family, you should try to help them as much as you can. If you're in a position to help and your family member needs help, you should help. And when you help, you should be very careful that you don't remind them about the help. You don't follow it with sarcasm. Allah says, Ya lazina amanu, la tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal adha. O you who believe, don't allow the spending that you do for your family to become null and void, to become worthless, because you followed it up with words of insult and hurtfulness. So when we help, that's not the moment to tell the family, if you had listened to me, you would not be in this position. We help unconditionally, we help whenever they need help and we're able to. The second thing is to advise your family, but you must do it with wisdom, because families sometimes don't like to be advised. They don't like people to tell them what to do and what not to do. So be very careful when you're advising a family. We must love them unconditionally. As I said, they come in all shapes, sizes, and religions and cultures, and some may have a different religion than you. We should love them all. They are part of our family. And your family is the one that will most likely get you upset and say mean things to you. One of the things that we must do is to forgive them quickly whenever they do anything wrong to us. It doesn't matter how big or small, it is part of the mentality of the Muslim that we forgive, especially our families. They will hurt us the most. Try to forgive them quickly. One of the other things that we must do with our families is pray for them, to make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our families. We must also defend them and their reputation. If someone is spreading bad information about your family, you have an obligation to be able to defend their reputation and speak up on behalf of them. We must honor our families, and part of that is to feel proud that they are part of your family. No matter whatever behavior they have, they are part of your family. Part of honoring that is to accept them as they are, to cover their faults instead of trying to publicize it, and to feel proud that they are a member of your family. And what we must not do is to judge them. We are not asked to judge the behavior of others. This is the job of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we must keep away from that and passing words that belittle them. Do not embarrass them. And among your family, the most prominent, the most important are the parents, moms and dads. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. We are asked that we must treat our parents with such importance, ihsan, which means kindness and almost perfection in how we deal with them. Our moms and our dads are among the greatest members of our families. And they have two different ways they operate. Moms are very intrusive. They will find out your business. They will want to know what you're doing. They will come and ask you. They'll nag you. They will be in your face, because moms care more than anyone in the world. Dads may step aside and wait for you to come to them. They may not pry into your face, but mom will. And so sometimes you get frustrated. Oh, why is she always in our business? Well, she raised you. She made tremendous sacrifices for you. You should never feel annoyed or upset because your mom is asking about your affairs. And I want to say to you, and especially when you get married, sometimes you tend to forget the importance of mom and dad. I want to say to you, anytime your parents are upset because of something that you are doing or not doing, Allah is also displeased with you. And so we must always be careful how we are treating our mothers and our fathers in the family setting. And so during this COVID time, when we're stuck with our families at home, this is a time to renew our relationship with them. The greatest source of joy and happiness that you can get in this world is from your families. They are God's gift to us. And so we should cherish them. We should allow ourselves to enjoy them and not be the one that just pushes them away. And so, as I close, I want to also wish my family well And I want to give a shout out to my grandchildren, my four granddaughters, Raisa, Ridwana, Baraka, and Sakina, and my eight grandsons, Jabir, Ismail, Yunus, Ilyas, Dawood, Muhammad, and Musa, who's 10 and fasting. And lastly, to Yusuf, who passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. And so I want to emphasize to you, family comes first. Always do right by them. And don't allow anything that they do to bother you so much. Be patient for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you deal with your family. And Allah will make them even more special in your eyes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanking you for following along with our reminders every night. Tonight, we really want to talk about a very important issue, and that is our words, our speech, our speaking, because words matter. You know, what we say has impact in the world. We can use our words to create hope. We can use our words to destroy. We can use our words to create war or peace. And that is why it is still the most powerful way of communication among human beings. You know, politicians, comedians, it still remains in media as one of the most important and powerful mediums, way of for a human being to connect. And so in our religion, words play a very important role. In Islam, it began with Jibril alayhi salam bringing the words of Allah and speaking it to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he told him those famous words, Ikra, Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq. And so throughout our faith, we use words to communicate. For example, in the Salah, we have to recite the Quran. The Adhan is someone has to get up and speak words to invite others. Or Dua, we have to make words to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the Jumu'ah, for the Eid, the sermons, we give words. In Zakah, when we give Zakah, we cannot follow it up with hurtful words. وَلَا تُبْتِلُوا بِصَدَقَاتِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ وَالْأَذَى, with words of hurt and injury. And even in a fasting, the Prophet said, whoever does not give up telling lies and evil deeds and displaying acts of ignorance, Allah is not in need of them giving up food and drink. Qawl zur, which is the telling of lies, is a critical part of what will make our fast be accepted. And in the Hajj, we say, Labaik Allahumma labaik, we use words. So throughout our religion, we have many things in which words are being used. When we get married, we have to use words that make consent, and the khutbah. And when the birth of a child, adhan, greeting each other, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And so we find that even when someone comes into the faith, they have to express words of shahada. And so a lot of what we do as a faith is speaking and using our voice and words to communicate to each other. And so it is important that we understand that there are rules. Whenever you open your mouth and you say something, subhanallah, it gets recorded and you are held accountable for it. And so it's important that we understand and follow some of the rules and guidelines, because a lot of time when we get in trouble, it is because of what we say to each other. And so forbidden to us are the following. Number one, that you should not say one thing, encourage one thing, and then do something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun kabara maqtan 'inda Allah an taqulu ma la taf'alun. O you who believe, why do you say that which you don't do? That this is one of the most hateful thing in the sight of Allah, that you say something, you encourage something, and you yourself do not practice it. Secondly, we are not allowed to get involved in what is called lagw, or vain talk. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about the believers, he says one of the qualities of the believers that will make them successful, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, that the believers are those who will keep away from lagw, from useless, vain talk. The third thing is that we should not backbite one another. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, as Allah tells us, nor let some of you backbite others, speaking ill, using our tongues to do that. We are also not allowed to curse. The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer does not slander, curse, or speak in an obscene and foul manner. That's the believer. We don't curse, we don't speak in an obscene and foul manner and slander. And then when it comes to their parents, we have to be even careful how we speak to them. Not even to say oof when they get old and they become very difficult to manage, that we don't open our mouth and speak ill words to them. You know, I have all my life endured people who were lesser than, who would speak to you in manners different. I've been cursed, I've been shouted at, I've been slandered, I've been even told in the middle of the Jumu'ah, man, get up and say, why do you shut your mouth and sit down? All of us have endured the acid tongue of someone who out of anger said things that is unfortunate to us. And so it is important to understand the Prophet ﷺ, he grabbed the tongue of Muaz ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, and he said, Kuffa alayka hadha, that, O Muaz, restrain this, and held his tongue. Hasa'id al-sinatihim, that the people who will go to the hellfire will be because of the harvests of their tongues, of what your tongue hath done. And so we are asked to and discouraged from doing those things. And when we do speak up, when we do speak, there are certain things that we are encouraged to do. One of the things that Prophet ﷺ tells us, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, falyakul khayran aw liyasmut." That let him who believe in Allah on the last day either speak good things or keep quiet. If you don't have anything good to say, it is more important to be quiet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us, Ya allazina amanu taqullah wa qulu qawlan sadida, that when you, or you who believe, have taqwa for Allah, and when you speak words that are truthful and clear and honest. We are told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. That when the servants of the Rahman, when the servants of the most merciful walk on the earth, they do so with humility. And when ignorant people come and try to address them and get involved in them, they say salam, they say peace. They don't get involved in those kind of disputes and conversations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ الصَّالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That who speaks better than he who calls to Allah while he himself does good and says, I am surely from those who submit. This is the person who is best in speech, who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we are told in this beautiful ayah from Surah An-Nahl, ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. And call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and good exhortation, and discuss and debate with people in a manner that is best and nicest. And so, my brothers and sisters, it is really important that we understand that when we do open our mouths, that we are respectful of what we say. We are gentle. We do not shout. And we are thoughtful about what kind of words we say. For words matter. They can hurt people. They can help people. And so during this month of Ramadan, where our speech is tied to the acceptance of our fasting, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to really bless you and your family. And as we are housed up and we will be speaking a lot to each other, that we be mindful and careful of how we talk. And don't allow ourselves to say things which we will regret later on. When you get angry, it is better to remain silent. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. I hope you're having a wonderful Ramadan. I am really beginning to really appreciate and enjoy the bounties of this Ramadan. Uh, and so I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow you to continue to have a beneficial Ramadan. Uh, we're back again at our regular talks. And so we're coming every night to you with hopes that some of what we say may, inshallah, be of benefit to you. Now, one of the things that always saddens me about our ummah is the slow path we are taking towards mediocrity, doing things not as professional and excellent as we should. You know, in the masjids, we are talking all the time about the way we put our shoes, the way we park, the lateness to our program. It seems we have become very comfortable in mediocrity, with having lesser, things of a substandard nature. And this should never be, because our religion is the exact opposite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to establish ihsan, which is the exact opposite of mediocrity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and establish ihsan, for verily Allah loves those people who practices ihsan. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, in Allah katab al-ihsan ala kulli shay, that verily Allah has prescribed ihsan over everything. So what is ihsan? Jibril alayhi salam once came in the form of a man, and he came and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with the companions. They didn't know it was Jibril, and they saw this man came and began to ask the prophets a series of questions. And one of those questions that Jibril asked, أخبرني عن الإحسان, tell me about ihsan. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded and said, Al-ihsan an ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarah, fa illam takun tarah fa innahu yarak. That ihsan is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you are seeing him before you. And even though we are not able to see Allah, know that Allah is seeing us. And so ihsan is that wonderful attitude that whatever we participate in, especially worship, is to have that consciousness that Allah is watching us. You know, when your boss is watching you as you do the job, we tend to be a little more careful, a little more, circumspect with how we behave. And ihsan as a concept have to do with three main things, three main virtues. Number one is excellence. An act of ihsan is an act of excellence. Number two, ihsan also connotes kindness. Kindness. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ ihsan, and be kind to your parents. And third, ihsan is about beauty, about bringing something and making things beautiful. And so these three qualities of excellence, kindness, and beauty is what connotes ihsan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in our natures, in our very being, that we are able to appreciate these three things. When we see something excellent, we admire and appreciate it. When we see an act of kindness, it moves our hearts. When we see something of beauty like a rose, it makes us joyful and happy. And so we connect with these three beautiful qualities of excellence, kindness, and beauty. And the opposite, when we see it, it bothers us. When we see mediocrity, when we see harshness, and when we see ugliness, it does not sit well in our souls. For Allah has created that way. And Allah has made nature all around us. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا. That Allah says He has created the things on the earth as a beautification and ornamentation for us, so that we are able to enjoy it. He could have made it ugly, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made all the things in the earth. Nature is so beautiful. And so it is important for us to establish and understand that if we are going to do an act of ihsan, there are 5 elements that must be a part of it. Number one is sincerity. that we must do any act that we do with sincerity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for show, not for gain, not for anything other than to be establishing this for the love and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That makes the action become worship, become ibadah. Secondly, when we do something, we must make sure it's correct, that it is within what Allah has prescribed. We cannot do an act with good intention, but the action itself violates the rules that Allah has set. Thirdly, we must make sure that whatever action we do, we complete it. We should not do actions that are halfway. We must try to complete those actions. Number 4, that those actions should be beneficial, that they should benefit humanity. And lastly, number 5 is beauty, that we must bring a wow factor to whatever we do, a uniqueness to whatever we do. You know, that is what separates us from the regular animals that do stuff. That the human being has the capacity to bring their creativity and their beauty to something. You know, the Muslims have a history. The way the architecture, they design their masjid, the rugs, the cloth, the pottery, the tiles, even the books in the past. There was meticulous care to ensure that they were beautiful, unique, and wonderful. And so when we perform an action, make sure it has sincerity, there is a correctness to it, that we make sure it's complete, we make sure it's beneficial, and we make sure that we bring our wow factor, the beauty and uniqueness to it. There's an artist in Syria, and we must operate like artists. You see, an artist, when he's doing his painting, and you go ask him, what are you painting? I'm painting a masterpiece. An artist is always painting a masterpiece. He's trying to bring out what is in his mind to you. So he's always working on a masterpiece. And an artist, when you look at them work, they don't care how long it takes, how much money it costs. They are not content until they bring out what they have inside us. We have a Syrian artist, Akram Abu, and he would take a shrapnel and bomb casings and bullet casings, and he would paint them because he said he doesn't want the children to feel scared. And so he does that as a way of beautifying the surroundings filled with all kinds of debris from bombings. And so when we see acts of ihsan, it moves us. We should develop the attitude of ihsan. In everything that we approach, it should be with the idea of doing it with ihsan, with those 5 wonderful qualities attached to it. And it always moves the world when we see acts of ihsan. Dr. Ahmed Sabil from Chicago, you know, one of the things in a dead of winter when it was difficult, he began to make food bags and grocery bags, call them blessing bags, and to drop them off at his neighbors as a way of demonstrating his act of ihsan. We saw when they were protesting the masjid in Texas. It was a very hot day. The protesters showed up with guns and surrounded the masjid on the road. But it was so hot that the Muslims in the masjid began to give them water. And as they were protesting, the Muslims was giving water to them, say, hey, take some water, you look thirsty. That's an act of ihsan. When one hijabi sister on the soccer field, her hijab came out, and all the other players surrounded her so she could fix it back. None of them wore hijab. Some of them were not even Muslims, but they immediately surrounded her and allowed her to fix her hijab. That's an act of ihsan. And we could always distinguish ihsan. We can see it. You will all experience a cashier. There are some cashiers in which you feel a good experience. There are others you feel like an alien. And so this Ramadan, train yourself to become a person of ihsan, to be one of the muhsineen, especially the young people, so that whatever you put forth in the world, it will have those qualities of ihsan, and that you will bring to the world something special. The Imams every Friday remind each and every one of us, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan, that verily Allah commands from you justice and excellence. Those are the 2 things that we must always bring to our actions and to our life. Whether you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer, go above and beyond what the people expect and do things well. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to become people of ihsan. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to protect you, your family, as we try to survive and benefit from this wonderful Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I wear this hat today because this hat reminds me of what Ihsan looks like. It is such a beautiful, well designed hat, and whoever did it must have done it with love and Ihsan. And so it moves you when you see good things. And so it's one of the reasons I wore a hat today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.